Hello and good morning for today's session about how SDGs are helping to rethink our cities. I'm Diana Lopez, I'm Partnership Specialist for Cities and Local Government at UNDP here in New York. And I'm very happy to welcome all our panelists for today's side event on Venice City Solutions 2030. Venice is a process that goes through the year, but that culminates in an event that we organize every year in the lovely city of Venice. And we bring together UN, parts of the UN with our good partners from United Cities and local government, very kindly hosted by the Italian section AICCRE. So this is a joint effort by UNDP, UN Habitat, the UN SDG Action Campaign, UCLG and AICCRE. And every year we bring the discussions in Venice to the HLPF more formally. Basically, what we try is to support as much as we can local governments in implementing the SDGs. This has been, I think, our 4th edition, and we're already very excited about organizing the 5th edition in Venice by the end of the year. So today we have a representative for each of the institutions that are part of the Venice family. And we have also some representatives from local governments and one association of local governments to share with us what they're doing, how they're getting inspiration from SDG to do better cities, to rethink their cities and territories. And also we are going to dedicate part of the space to see how we can do more, because we need to flip the script. My colleague Xavi is going to introduce you to this wonderful concept that we are working together. We are 7 years into the implementation of the SDGs, and we all need to do more. We need to flip the script and rethink the way that we do public policy to do more and to achieve the SDGs by year 2030. I welcome our attendees online. The chat for Q&A is open. At the end of the event, I think we're going to have some time to open the floor, so you can also request to open in the QA if need be. So please make your comments, share your ideas with us through the chat, the Q&A. Without further ado, I'm going to give the floor to our first speaker. She's Francine Merchioretto. She's a SDG localization expert at UN Habitat, who has kindly organized this event for us and request this space at HLPF, which is not always easy to get as official side event. So Francine, over to you.
Thank you, Diana, and it's our pleasure. So just to start, very good morning for who is in New York, and afternoon for most of us. As Diana just mentioned, my name is Francine Merchioretto, and I'm the SDG localization expert working in the localization and local governments team at UN Habitat. We are very delighted to be here today. My colleague Martino, who was coming to join the session, sent his regards. He couldn't be here because of personal reasons, but he wanted to. So the Venice City Solutions 2030 side event at the higher level political forum, it's a space that we think is important, that happens every year to bring the results of the event. So thank you for all the colleagues, UNDP, AICCRE, UCLG, and the SDG Action Campaign for co-organizing with us. But coming to what I came to say is more from our perspective, from UN Habitat. We really believe, and we are supporting together with all of us that are speaking here today, what is the role of local action to help to achieve the SDGs, no? And we really believe that cities can really bring the solutions to rethink our territories. And so how do UN Habitat help with that? So we have a cooperative response to support local and regional governments with SDG localization that is articulated around like 3 main components. The first is the SDG Cities Flagship Program, the Global Urban Monitoring Framework, and then voluntary local reviews. So the SDG Cities Flagship Program is a UN Habitat comprehensive framework to accompany the cities' strategic planning in line with the SDGs. It connects the process of data collection, local strategic planning, identifies, plans, and try to help the cities to finance SDG impact initiatives. And also in parallel with this, it builds local institutional capacities because it has a series of diagnosis tools that are in line not only with the 2030 agenda, but also with the new urban agenda. The second one that I mentioned, the Global Urban Monitoring Framework, is a framework that harmonizes existing urban indices and tools and offers an agreed universal framework to track the performance of urban SDGs and the new urban agenda. It has been commissioned by the General Assembly, and this year it was also approved, so that had become the UN framework for local and regional governments to monitor how they are doing in regards to achieving the agendas. And finally, we have the voluntary local review, which many of you are familiar with it, and we're going to hear about some experience today, which are those reports that cities, municipalities are presenting to show the progress in achieving the 2030 agenda. And why we strongly promote VLRs from our side, and especially from our team, because we really believe that they are a powerful tool to support the cities to accelerate SDG achievement. And why is that? Because we see that through a VLR exercise, we can foster cooperation across the public administration departments, but also we can through a participatory process, we can bring the local communities, minorities, and vulnerable groups closer to the decision-making process. So this is also help us to enhance transparency and boost innovation in data production and management at the local level. And most importantly, those results are very valuable for the cities to guide the strategic planning and make sure that no one is left behind. So these three elements that I mentioned that are the cooperative offer of UNHABITAT, they really cover the whole SDG localization cycle, because we look at data innovation to strategic planning, policy formulation, monitoring, and report. And I just wanted to mention a few results that we have been seeing by partners that have joined with us in one of those three programs, elements, or in the three together, because I think it's important to mention what you can gain from using those tools. So first, it increases local capacities to deliver the agendas. As I mentioned before, it brings a solid participatory and inclusive policy-making process that leaves no one behind. It gives a local and regional governments more transparency and help them to strengthen the social contract with people. It also allows us to achieve improved local data and as well improve indicators ecosystems. Through these approaches, we can have more coordination and coherence with other levels of governments, as well as improve multi-stakeholder cooperation with different actors. And overall, we see a higher civic engagement and the ownership of global agendas. But most important, all these elements lead local governments to design public policies that are better to the people and the territory. But beyond these internal benefits, being part of this process can also amplify the voices of local and regional governments in international debates. And this also helps us to consolidate their role in achieving the 2030 agenda. And we also believe that the international exposure that cities can get can help us to connect them with several actors, not only other cities, but international partners, opening for the decentralized cooperation partners, as well as the financial institutions. And we promote those debates exactly for these benefits I just mentioned. And as a few examples, just last week, we have concluded the 11th edition of the World Urban Forum. It counted more or less with 17,000 people from 155 countries, and culminated in the Katowice Declare actions that really brought aspirations and the way forward for us to build a better and a sustainable urban future. This week, as we just started the high-level political forum, UNHABITAT, it's also helping to bring the voice of local actors by organizing a series of events. We are here today but we are also tomorrow participating in the 5th edition of the Local Regional Forum, where we will moderate a relevant discussion on how we move beyond reporting with multi-level governance and multi-stakeholder collaboration. Friday, we're going to launch a very important research on the multi-level governance as a driver for SDG localization. And finally, on Monday, as UN Habitat is the Secretariat and the permanent co-chair of the Local 2030 Coalition, we are holding a discussion on how local action can help us to get the SDGs back on track. So I just take the opportunity to invite you for all this. We're going to put the information, but before I finish, I just want to mention a bit more from the Local 2030 Coalition. We have the event next week, but I would like to say brief words on it. So last year, we have worked across the UN system to revamp the Local 2030 and transform this into the UN system-wide coalition supporting local action. The coalition was built on the premise that the institution and the communities are close to the challenges and they are the best position to serve them, which is a bit what we are promoting here today, bringing the solutions from the cities to achieve the global goals. This year, we have had the first steering committee of the Local 2030 Coalition, which gathers partners from different constituencies. And we expect that this new phase of this work will also allow the UN as a whole to work close with everyone. So not only through the steering committee, but all of you that represent local and regional governments, national governments, civil society, private sector, academia, everyone, to help us to achieve the SDGs, because we believe that the localization is really everyone's business. So we should be there together. So just in a nutshell, I want to conclude by saying that initiatives such as the Venice City Solutions, they really trigger positive impact internally to the cities, because we discussed and we are able to offer innovative solutions that can guide more inclusive local policies and initiatives that are in line with global agendas, but also externally, because they help us to connect cities across the globe to share the experience and practice. So we are very happy to be part of this journey with all of you, and thank you very much. Over to you, Diana.
Thank you, Francine, for this very comprehensive exposition about what UN Habitat is doing. And it's really nice to see how you have stepped up. We started together this travel with UCLG, UNDP, and UN Habitat when nobody was talking about localizing SDGs. And of course, now it's 7 years. And thank God the local governments have stepped up and they have taken Agenda 2030 as their own. But naturally, we need to keep doing more and supporting local governments, because at a certain point, SDGs and the VLRs, the voluntary local reviews, have become a diagnosis for priorities of the city, but naturally the second step, the city said, well, now what? Now we have to implement, and that is public policy. And they need help with finance, with the inclusion of more inclusive policy making. They need help with inventing the way that we deliver public services, etc. So it's very interesting to see what UN Habitat is doing. But we have also seen through these years how important it is to communicate what local governments are doing. And for that, we've been working very closely with UCLG and the SDG Action Campaign in developing some innovative communication tools, because we are aware that the VLRs are super important, are a key policy instrument, but it's true that the citizens in the streets, they need to see something more visible about what this agenda means to their daily lives. So to illustrate a little bit what we have been doing lately, I have my colleague Xavi Longan. He's partnerships and operations specialist as the UN SDG Action Campaign, which is the UN effort to keep the SDGs alive and to advance on SDG implementation and awareness. So Xavi, over to you.
Thank you so much, Diana. Thanks to you for bringing us together, for facilitating and moderating this. It's great to be together with all the co-organizers of Venice. I think you were saying before, Diana, that we're the Venice family, so I think we can consider everyone joining also this session, our extended Venice family. So welcome everyone. I'm just gonna share the screen to flick through some slides if you allow me. Okay, I hope you can see my screen now.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I feel that the few thoughts I would like to share are very complementary to what Francine was talking about. As you were saying, Diana, there is a policy and implementation side to how the UN, through different teams, is supporting local governments. But there is also an advocacy and communications and campaigning side, and this is more our specialty, let's say. This is the focus of the UN SDG Action Campaign, which I represent here today. We are an interagency initiative hosted by the Executive Office of UNDP. And our mandate, in essence, is to mobilize, inspire, and connect people and organizations to take action on the SDGs, and then make sure there is also a link between this action and the decision-making processes at different levels. So as part of that effort, we've been working very closely with UCLG and other local and regional government networks since the time of the Millennium Development Goals on precisely generating action at local level, supporting the efforts of local governments around advocacy, around communications, connecting this local action also with the global dimension, and helping, in essence, to generate trust at local level between citizens and the institutions. We've been also elevating the voices and the messages from mayors around the world and other officials and representatives from local and regional governments. And we've been trying to support from our side this interface between the local governments, within institutions at local level and the citizens, and then other stakeholders as well. We, as a campaign, we work with a multitude of stakeholders, also civil society, academia, think tanks, and so we've been trying to harness all that energy and support also local governments and regional governments to do the same, to harness that energy and make sure that this action at the local level, first, that it happens, that people take action on the SDGs at local level, and then that we elevate and amplify this action. Now, as Diana was saying, we, from the UN SDG Action Campaign, we have been focusing as of late on this concept of flipping the script. This is a campaign that we have launched this year. And we have been inviting our strategic partners and from different constituencies to work with us on this narrative and this idea that we need to flip the script, that we're facing a lot of challenges, including of course, the COVID pandemic, but then conflict also erupting, including in Europe. We're facing the energy crisis, so we need really to take bold action at all levels, and this is a message behind flipping the script. As you can see on the slide, what we mean by flipping the script is including and amplifying underrepresented perspectives, bringing individuals and communities into the political process, so bringing those voices into the decision-making processes, and ensuring that the outcome leads to healthy, just, and green recovery for all. This is the idea, simple idea in a way, behind the flip the script, the need to turn apathy into action, fear into hope, divisiveness into togetherness. So we're taking this concept and we are working with, as I said, with UCLG, primarily also in the framework of the Global Task Force for Local and Regional Governments, on several tools to, in a way, materialize this flip the script concept, so to turn it into a campaign and to turn it into different tools that can help, as Diana was saying, local governments to communicate their messages, to communicate better also with citizens on what they're doing on SDG action, to engage citizens on SDG action, and then ultimately to bring these to the global level, as we are doing in a way now for HLPF and in the context of other global multi-stakeholder, multinational fora. As I said, the idea behind the flip the script is the need to recalibrate, reimagine, reinvent, also rethink, as Francine was mentioning earlier, rethink our strategies, rethink our policies, and take bold action. Now the objectives, and I'll try to summarize this quickly, but the objectives behind this effort are these four that you can see on the screen. We want to inspire local and regional governments to take action and shift policies and local action to better contribute to the implementation of the SDGs. So we want to help them with this effort. We want to increase the ownership, the visibility, and the engagement around the SDGs. And as I mentioned, this goes for individuals and organizations at local level, but also the local governments, local and regional governments themselves. Also to identify and assess local stories, and I'll come to that in a second. And then to share these experiences to elevate those actions and those voices to the global level. So we're doing this through a couple of initiatives. So I'll mention a couple. We're collaborating around several areas, but for the purpose of this presentation, I'll focus on this, the SDG Tales, and then the Global Week for Action on the to act for the SDGs. So the SDG Tales, basically, it's an effort to identify, capture, and explain stories from the local level. We launched together with UCLG an open call for stories, basically from cities and regions across the world. We got a positive response to that, and we have to that call, and we have identified a number of cities that we want to help tell their story. So these are stories of SDG action at national level at local level from several cities. We want to hear how they're implementing the SDGs, how they're contributing to innovative city management, for instance, how they're contributing to bring partners together and people together, and how they're engaging citizens at local level. And the goals of this exercise. Okay, thank you.
2 minutes, thank you.
So the goals of this exercise are to identify innovative initiatives, as I said, to transform these initiatives into public communication and advocacy tools, creative tools with different formats, and to inspire other cities also to do the same. These are the cities that have, the 6 cities that have been identified in this initial pilot, and as you can see, it's a good geographic spread. So we're going to be working with them to bring these innovative communication formats and stories to life. And then just to conclude with the Global Week to Act for the SDGs, this is a global mobilization that we convene from the UN SDG Action Campaign with partners from across the world every year. And it takes place around the anniversary of the goals on the 25th of December. This year, the Global Week to Act for the SDGs between the 16th and the 25th of September. Last year, we mobilized, as you can see, 100 million actions from 191 countries. So it's a true global mobilization, engaging partners from many different constituencies. You see here our convening, mobilizing, and supporting partners, which of course includes UCLG. And then this year, we are launching a call to action across three different areas. So one is individual action by everyone, anywhere. Then we're also reaching out to celebrities, key opinion leaders to help us with amplifying this call to action. And then we're inviting particularly cities and other institutions to organize a stand, a public stand, on using the flip the script concept. And so it's basically a way to show from the city with other partners that we are ready to flip the script, that we're ready to take this bold action. And it can be just as simple as you can see here, just turning fear into hope, apathy into action. So it can be just an action of flipping a message around to show what's being done at local level. And then we will also share, we have a toolkit, we have a pledge to accompany that. And as you can see here, we have several tools, an interactive map, we have a Trello board, billboards for the campaign, social media tools. And I don't know if Diana, you will allow me to end with the video. It's 50 seconds. So I'll just show you the Flip the Script video and let you know that we are producing, it's about to launch an adaptation of this video with the messages from local governments. We will launch it during HLPF together with UCLG. So I'll stop here and I'll just play the video. Thanks.
No, it's not playing.
No?
No.
No sound?
No, no video, nothing.
Oh.
Okay, so let me go to Mariale and maybe I can try to do it at the end of the session, okay? Thanks.
Thank you.
Because we're running a little bit late now. Thank you, Xavi, for this very intense presentation about what the campaign is doing to focus on local government. It's very important also that the campaign is focusing, and I think it's helping cities around the world and territories to communicate better what they are doing on SDGs. Now let's go back to the city side of the equation. So we have with us Maria Alejandra Rico Falla, who is Advocacy and Learning Officer at the United Cities and Local Government and a partner of many years. So Mariale, over to you.
Thank you, Diana. I'm very excited to be here, but I'm also very excited to be here with you. I mean, with all of you partners. You have our Secretary General call you our localizing friends, but I rather this expression that you have about our Venice family itself. So I'm very happy to be here with all of you. My name is Maria Alejandra, as you already mentioned. I come from United Cities and Local Governments, and we want to thank all the partners for powering the space of Venice City Solutions, but also for powering the space here in the HLPF. I think it's a long run that we have accomplished, so I think we have to recognize ourselves in this process. I'm not gonna go very long because I already know Diana and I know how she is with times. But I wanted just to say that as local and regional governments, the constituency that we have in UCLD, we are convinced that local and regional governments are the guardians of the SDGs, and this means that also that these institutions that are here and for sure a lot of the people that is watching us at home and their offices are also guardians of the SDGs. And what does this mean? It means that we were inspired enough before to think about this visionary, this ambitious agenda, but it also means that we are now committed and dedicated to making sure that all the values and that all the inspiration that we get from this agenda are defended. We are committed to transform our realities, and we are also committed to secure that all these efforts are recognized and visualized, all the efforts that cities and regional governments and all of you are making to make this agenda a reality. I am pretty sure I don't have to convince you why the SDGs are a perfect framework for working, but also for working in the field that we work, but for working together. I don't have to convince you about that because this Venice City Solution and this event and what we do is a perfect example of that thing. But what I want to bring here is just to give a little bit of a different option of localization and how this concept of localization has evolved. We are not talking just about a pledge. We are not talking a lot about an aim. We are not talking about a tool, but localization of the SDG has become a movement. And that is something that is totally different. And that is actually what I believe is flipping the script, is flipping the narrative. It is not just something that is just focused on action, but is people together, and also this powerful notion of what can be achieved by connecting the local with the global, and how the local and the global can have a better impact in citizens and communities' lives. And I think this is something that we have to think on. So how can we make this localization really having this impact? I wanted to bring this idea of this kind of like multidimensional aspect of the SDGs, where local governments here at the HLPF, or in doing the efforts of the SDGs, are not just reporting. Local governments are committed to develop actions, to change policy, to anchor this sustainability in all the different spaces of public policies. But furthermore, now local and regional governments are in a position where they are able to strategize, to be part of this narrative, to also change this narrative from their own experience, from their own communities, and for sure, with this image of being guardians of the dreams as an aspiration of their communities. The other spheres of governments, international organizations, cannot be just limited in this idea of localization to play the part of receiving reports, to establish these frameworks for reporting. This is great, but national and international organizations must be a source of support, as Diana was mentioning before, so that local policy can have a place and can advance in this transformation that the SDGs are bringing to us. So this has to do with advocating for sure that local and regional governments have the sufficient of enough capacity to make this agenda a reality, and that this could be also reflected in national and international policies. And the final part of this multidimensional idea of this advanced or evoluted concept of localization is what Xavi was mentioning now, is the structure or how we call the other stakeholders, how we call and how we involve citizens in this part. And I think that is one of the key parts of the Venice City Solutions strategy that is bringing everybody, not just local government, but every actor and every stakeholder in the territory, and putting the value on what everybody has to see, from private sector to civil society, to academia, to cultural institutions. So that is also Venice City Solutions advancing in this and powering this notion of localization. Diana asked me to say what UCLG does in localization, but I could have like a whole session on just what we do. But I wanted just to mention a few points. First of all, UCLG has been one of the first global organizations that is putting localization at the heart of its work plan. It has done it before, and it's doing it now in the process that we are facing. Now we have not just a work plan, but we have a vision that we are constructed and we are progressing, and actually that we are building with most of the partners that are here. And that is called the Pact for the Future for Humanity. And this Pact for the Future is bringing not only the experience of cities and community, but also thinking about the bigger pictures, how we relate with the three axes of the pact, how we relate with people, that is the first act, the fair access. So how we think about a different, how we think about rights, how we think about people are getting involved, how we think about youth, accessibility, this other part that for sure were included in the SDGs, but that we want to have a specific path here. How are we thinking about feminist municipal movement? How are we thinking about the need of a new and renewed feminist leadership? The second axe that is also working and is also based on this localization, not just values, but also their processes, is planet. And the second axe is about how we relate with our territory. That also means our means of conceptions, our the relation we have with the planet, the relation we have also with, for example, the food systems, the relation we are advancing and maybe provoking this climate crisis that we are living in. And the third axis of the pact is something that is very important, and is government, and is how we build these institutions, and we are not building these institutions from zero. We are reshaping, rethinking, reevaluating, and making these institutions move forward so they can actually, as I was saying at the beginning, respond to all these dreams and aspirations of the community. This means also what Xavi was commenting before. This means working on trust, on participation, on accountability, on decentralized cooperation, on a renewed and better multilateralism. So you see that our work program is based on the values, but also on the processes that are coming from the SDGs. And in this, I just wanted to mention how do we make this? How are we making our work? 1 minute, oh my God, I'm gonna be running. So we do it, but something that is very important, and is called the power of we, and that is the strength of the municipal movement doing what we are used to do. So what we do, we advocate, and we make international organizations listen to cities. This means that we work with UN Habitat, we are at the WOOF, we are at the HLPF, so we guarantee that local and regional governments have a seat, but what I mentioned before, not just for listening, but just for starting strategizing and changes the narrative from our perspective. We research, and that is very important, we research to develop pathways for an equitable and sustainable future. And with this, what we do, the most important thing that I think I should be calling is the report for the HLPF that every single year UCLG does, and brings the experiences and also puts the evidence of what local governments are doing. We learn, we develop tools, learning activities and modules to learn together to embrace localization. We have 4 modules of localizing SDGs, 2 modules of localizing the Sendai framework, which are also very powerful. And the third, we act. And in this act, we act, we call this a local for action. Local for action is what is needed. And with this, we have a specific initiative that is called the Local for Action Hubs, which actually Venice City Solutions and AICCRE are one of the main partners, and actually AICCRE is, Venice City Solutions is the hub of hubs. What is the Local for Action Hubs? Actually, it's a platform where all this that I'm mentioning is bringing. First, a platform that brings the local to the global, brings these links. Second, a platform that from the local and regional government needs, aspirations, but also from their challenges, is thinking about solutions, but it's not thinking just with themselves, it's thinking and constructing and building an ecosystem of partners so they can do something else. It's a platform for accelerating the SDGs, and for sure, it's a platform where we can all synchronize our actions so we can all work together, because you already know that if we do not work together, we're not gonna get far enough. So just, I'm closing with this. I just wanted to give value to the experience that has been participating and being part of the process that the Venice City Solution is. It's a very important initiative for UCLG, and we just want to congratulate AICCRE and the Venice City Solution partners for being and for all the work that we have been doing. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you, Marale. I knew it was a big mistake when we started conceiving this session, saying, but we have nothing to say, it's going to be a very short session, 5 minutes, and everybody tells me, no, 5 minutes is more than enough. And then I end up like always being the bad witch. But it's good to see that there is still so far in the process so much passion around SDGs, and what you have said about the narrative is extremely important. In fact, I am totally against using the word localizing SDGs anymore, because it was something we needed to do in the past, when we had to take this global agenda that had been designed at global level with very little input from local governments, but there was some input, because there was the local governments who lobbied for SDG 11. But I think in that time, in 2014, 13, when we started this process, we were thinking, now we're going to have an SDG on cities. And everybody, when we got SDG 11, everybody was like, yes, we have an SDG on cities. And then happened something a little bit revolutionary, is then we realized that this agenda is all local because it comes together in the city. So this is when the famous 65% of the targets, but if you go through the targets, I mean, more than 65 are done by cities directly. And then it's when it changes, because the moment that the cities take this as their own strategic agenda and they start using the SDG targets and they start putting budgets aligned to the SDGs. This is when the SDGs will stay as a sustainability strategy forever and ever. Whatever happens after 2031, this concept of that we need to see the whole agenda of sustainability, and then of course taking priorities, because we have a mayor here and a councillor, and you are the ones that decide the local priorities for your own cities. But this gives you like a whole, we call it in Spanish, you know, like a fan. So you have all these big picture of sustainability, and then you choose the ones that are applicable to your city. And that's a little bit what's happening as a revolution. So I'm totally against about talking about localization. It's local implementation now. The localization was done in the past. It's a thing of the past. So we need to keep advancing in the narrative, because, you know, we have politicians with us. And even if Rose is not elected, but she's the most politician of us all. And so now we're going to have this vision from you elected representatives. It's so important to be elected by people. I think we don't say that enough. How important, you know, you come here and you have citizens that stop you in the streets and tell you, well, I vote for you, now what? So please tell us how this agenda is helping you to reimagine and rethink your cities. So we have now Michael Porras. He's the mayor of the Sarchi Canton in Costa Rica, and we are very happy to have elected representatives with us. So please, Mr. Mayor, tell us more about how the SDGs are relevant for your city, and what does it mean for your city to be implementing Agenda 2030. Over to you, thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for allowing us to share our experience implementing the Sustainable Development Goals. Sarchi, first of all, let me tell you that it's a small city located in the west of the Central Valley of Costa Rica, with a territorial extension of 120 square kilometers and approximate population of 22,000 inhabitants and an annual budget of $4 million. So as you can imagine, it is a small city located in a small country, but with a huge passion to implement the SDGs, the Global Development Agenda, and to link our plans with those agendas. In 2021, we request support from the United Nations Development Program, intending to link our operational and strategic planning to sustainable development goals. In this way, we managed to develop let me start again. In 2021, we request support from the United Nations Development Program, intending to link our operational, our daily, and our strategic planning to sustainable development goals. In this way, we managed to develop our local plan for human development in the term of 2020-2030, taking the SDGs as a roadmap. Based on this strategic planning and placing people at the center of decision-making and the execution of actions, we are formulating projects along the following lines. First, we are focusing on the appropriation of public spaces to promote recreation and culture as mechanisms to prevent insecurity. Developing strategies together with populations, considering girls and boys, older adults, and people with disabilities. In other line, we are protecting water sources, generation investments to guarantee water and sanitation for the population in the long term. As a other step, we are promoting innovation and technology transfer, taking education as a social mobilizer to reduce inequalities. And as one of the other strategies, we are seeking the regeneration of rivers and forests, rethinking territorial development focused on solutions based on nature. But we are not going to stop there. We are going in other steps that we want to achieve. Right now, we are working on our first voluntary local report. This will be the first report for Costa Rica to the United Nations in the local governments. Right now, SDG and other 4 local governments are working on our first voluntary local reports. We want this year, at the end of the year, to link our first open government action plan with the SDGs, because right now we are part of the open local open government program of the Open Government Partnership. And we want to join global initiatives like Venice City Solutions and the strategies, as you already talked in this panel, to see what more can we do on the next years to really show people the impact of the implementation of the SDGs in our daily work. What are the main challenges that we have here in SDG? In Costa Rica general, I can say the small budget of that we have to execute the ambitious projects that we have. Also, the lack of technical knowledge on the approach of the SDGs, not only in the local government, but in the other public institutions, because this agenda that Costa Rica already is working on the implementation, it's quite new to the people, to the public servants that are working with us in other institutions. The institutions, for example, that are taking actions on education, security, like sustainable development, in other topics like health, for example. So the lack of technical knowledge on the approach of the SDGs is one of our main challenges right now. And the big challenge is to show citizens the real impact of the implementation of the Sustainable Development Agenda. We need to show with examples, with projects, how they can see the impact of the implementation. In the last 2 years, we have overcome skepticisms of the people to how to implement this agenda. And my final message is, if a small city such as SDG with $4 million budget annually, if we can do the implementations, and we are working on the implementation of the SDGs with this tight budget, imagine what large cities could achieve if we join together to move forward this agenda in the next years, to be gratefully and happy in 2030 to really show people how the SDGs can be a reality, to implement with real solutions for real people, and not to letting anyone be out of this agenda. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know very well that when the budget is short, you need to take even more strategic decisions. You have to use it even better. So that's why we have been observing that this kind of having all these priorities helps local governments to choose, because then you can go also to the target specifically, because it's saying like no hunger. No hunger, that doesn't mean anything, but the number of children that have school meals, that means something to everyone. Everyone understands that there are children that cannot afford food and they get food from schools. So that's why this is helping cities to make this strategic decision. We want to invest in this target, because otherwise we are talking about no hunger, and no hunger is a very wonderful goal, but we need to start realizing it by specific measures. And I'm very happy to hear that you have in mind very well this 4 million for your population. And of course, it's very interesting to have a vision from a small city, but no city is small. You have people living there, and now people are more important than big cities. So it's always a very refreshing to see that this agenda is also applicable for cities that have less population than others. It's not a small city, it's a wonderful city, I'm sure. So let's go to another wonderful city in Portugal. We have with us Joana Balsemão. She's a city councillor of Cascais in Portugal. So Joana, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Hi, good morning everyone, or afternoon here. And it's really nice to be amongst such like-minded colleagues. So I have a PowerPoint that I would like to share because it may help. Can you see it?
Yes, very well.
Okay, thank you. So yes, cities really need advocates like the ones that are here and the speakers that I have heard, because, and I don't have to like pitch this to you, but really cities are central. The battle for sustainability will be won or lost in cities. This is what I usually say. And so this is our city. This is Cascais, just a few numbers. So 200 and something thousand inhabitants. There's 131 nationalities, the most diverse municipality in Portugal. And a third of the territory is a national park, and there's a 32-kilometer coastline. And so I highlight these numbers because these are the assets we are cherishing, people and nature. This is what we're caring for. And I would like to take you along our SDG journey. But first, just let you know that we are sort of a hyperactive here in Cascais. We go all over, we have climate action strategies, we have biodiversity strategies, we have citizen participation programs, we have social action programs. All this is happening under different verticals, but it's kind of dispersed. So one vertical is not aware of what the next colleagues next door are doing. And so we know we're hyperactive, we know we have the instruments and the measures, but SDGs for us was really the best opportunity to bring all this together under one single vision. I don't know if this makes sense to you, but this was like the opportunity we had inside to have a common vision, but also outside to involve others and to share a common language with other cities, other organizations. So this was these are a few steps of our journey and that I will take you through. And we have defined this methodology by inside out approach. Why? Because first we engage inside to then contaminate positively the outside. Because if inside we're not engaged, if civil servants in all departments don't understand what SDGs are about, don't understand how valuable this framework is and what is happening elsewhere in the world regarding SDGs, then this will never really be appropriated. So we started in-house. We started in-house with engagement and training sessions. And this was, of course, two ways. In one hand, we wanted to raise awareness amongst colleagues. So what are SDGs about? But also because there is such a huge task force in Cascais, we wanted to sort of take the pulse on each one, because each one is really aware in their own areas of what are the issues that are positive, negative, where we need to strengthen, have more policies, more measures, etc. So for the first initial step was involving 300 employees from 15 different areas and just sitting for a whole morning or afternoon and explaining what SDGs are about, and also asking them, what is your feeling about what is happening in your area and of work. And it was very curious because some colleagues, like human resources department or finance departments, at the beginning of the sessions, they were like, you know, SDGs, this is really not about me or what I do. This is not related to my work at all. And at the end of the session, they would be super enthusiastic because they would understand actually what I do also touches on several SDGs. And even the municipal police, they thought, oh, we only touch on one SDG, which is like justice. And by the end, they realized, wow, we're also doing so much work on poverty, on environment. And this made them feel proud and part of a bigger picture, more horizontal, less vertical. So yes, Diana, I used the word localization, sorry, but I will definitely take your suggestion on board. I think it makes a lot of sense and it's part of our lobbying process. So definitely this will be updated. But we started the localization process inside. We will involve stakeholders from the outside, but we started inside. And we have these 3 pilot areas where we're defining local targets. It's super tough. So I wanted to talk about challenges here. And like for some targets, we have tens of indicators already collected in-house. And we don't know how to crunch this data to make it useful, to transform it into knowledge, and then make this knowledge transformable into action. So it's been really a learning curve. And we have outside help now from data scientists, and this is really helping. On one hand, it's great that Qashqai Council has so many indicators for so many areas, but on the other hand, it makes the task more cumbersome. So this is where we are, this is where we want to go to. And really, again, if we don't involve people inside, it won't happen. Then the next step, which is monitoring, will not be engageable. People will not appropriate it. So we really have to involve everyone. And yes, this inside-out methodology takes more time. It's a bit scary sometimes because we're treading new ground. But we have realized that it really does make a difference versus having an external entity come in, examine us and deliver a report. It's not the same thing. And then we're also all about co-creation. And this event that you see here in the photograph was a municipal congress that the mayor wanted us to organize, just dedicated to SDGs. So again, we had over 300 participants, not the same ones. Well, some were overlapping, but also different to the ones that were participating in the training sessions. And this was a collective moment. So we were raising awareness. We asked all of these colleagues, to define which would be their priorities for SDGs. And these were the winners. And then you can see on the photographs below, the whole afternoon was dedicated to co-creating solutions for each priority SDG. So colleagues were sitting in tables, we had mentors and we had moderators. And then at the end of the day, they explained what the solutions were. And now we're going to look at these solutions, or the winning solutions, because there was a jury, and we're looking at how to implement them. So because of all this engagements and really the outputs was really interesting, and you can measure how many people participated, sure, but that's only a number. And then the rest is the feeling you get out of this. And another metric is really interesting and unexpected was that colleagues from different departments started coming to us, environmental department, with ideas about how we can weave in the SDGs into our everyday business. And this was really unexpected because we did not ask them to do this, and they came up with these ideas. So one of them is, for example, the SDG visa. So for every proposal that goes to a town hall meeting or a municipal assembly meeting, the proposal has to indicate to which 2 SDGs it will mainly contribute. And this is interesting because it gives us a perspective of which SDGs are being more voted for in our meetings. Another inside weaving approach came from the finance department. So remember the department that thought, oh, SDGs, this is really nothing to do with me. So they proposed this approach where we classify all municipal investments according to SDGs. And you can see here on the right-hand side, which were the SDGs that are most invested in. And I would say that except for SDG 9, industry and innovation, these are all SDGs that were on the list of the 5 prioritized SDGs, which is interesting.
Anna, 1 minute.
Okay, so these are the key drivers for success, in my opinion. I've pointed out a few of the challenges. Mayor buy-in is essential. Organization engagements, I've explained a few of the tools that we've used to have this buy-in. Dedicated staff, so we have a dedicated team just for SDGs. And then the multidisciplinary approach. SDGs cannot be perceived as being just from one department. They have to be perceived as coming from the whole organization. And this is what is coming next. I've explained this along my presentation. So more challenges, and I hope to be with you next year to present a few of the other outcomes and successes. I'll leave you with this last sentence and a lighthouse. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joanna. It was very comprehensive. As you have said, it's hard. You know, it's like sometimes we say this presentation and you say, yes, let's implement the SDGs. It's very hard. It's a process that takes change in colleagues from the bureaucracy. We call it bureaucracy, but it's also colleagues. It's difficult for them. You know, you come to this event, you speak in English, you have this access to the globe, what's happening at global level. But for people working locally, you know, sometimes this is like you're talking in another language. It takes a long time to bring people along. And that's why mayors always know that if you don't bring the people along, you can do nothing because it's very hard. So thank you for your presentation, because I think it gave us really a comprehensive view about the big effort that takes them to make this kind of process happening at local level. So now we go to Africa, finally. We have our colleague and friend, Rose Gamwera. She is the Secretary General of the East Africa Local Government Association that supports 5 national associations of local governments in Africa. And we really need to hear more from this continent, and we really need to make a much effort that the SDGs mean something for the global South. And this is something that we keep talking about it, but really it's time that we really give a push on Asia and Africa, that there are many people committed to the SDGs, but we really need to flip the script of the support that we do in Africa, especially and the global South. So Rose, please tell us what does the SDGs mean for local governments in Africa? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Diana. And good afternoon from East Africa. It's afternoon here, and good morning to our colleagues from the other countries. It's a pleasure for me to join this panel to address ourselves on a subject that is very core, as you all have said, to the business of local governments. And I hope that I'll be able to bring to mind what we need to do to rethink the city, and for that matter, the local region or the local governments as it is. I have a PowerPoint to share to guide my discussion, but in terms of a quick answer to the question of what do the local governments think about SDGs in Africa, when we started working with the SDGs transiting from the MDGs, the biggest question on the minds of the local governments in Africa were that, but we are already doing these things. What is so different? We are offering services in health. We are handling education. We are dealing with infrastructure development. So what are they talking about? So having said that, I want to agree with you, Diana, to say that actually we need to move from talking about localization, because it's already happening, and place emphasis on actual local implementation and having impact in terms of our journey towards the attainment of the SDGs. So I'm going to quickly share my PowerPoint, and I hope it works. Okay. Okay, great. So this PowerPoint is really about the East African Local Government Association. Okay, I'll have to go back a bit. Anyway, about the East African Local Governments Association. And the association, like Diana has said, is a membership body for the local government associations of the member states of East African Community. We all know that East African Community is the regional bloc of the East African member states of Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Burundi, Rwanda, and more recently we have DRC on board and the Southern Sudan. So actually we are spreading our wings, but for the 5 countries, we have actually 6 local government networks, because in Kenya we have 2 of them, the Council of Governors and the County Assemblies Forum. And I want to acknowledge the presence of representatives of those 2 entities on this online session. I want to thank them, Judy and Ken, for having joined me, as well as others who may have joined without me noticing. So the association has been in existence since 2005, but we have consolidated our mandate to work in the region more recently in February 2022, when we signed a pact with the ESC to work together on leveraging the agenda of integration using the strength of the local government institutions. That is quite a powerhouse, particularly when we look at pursuing the region and global agendas that actually speak together. Because when we look at the ESC agenda, we look at the African Union agenda and the global agenda, they are all anchored within the SDGs agenda. So in 2020, my presentation is going to be anchored more in the findings of 2020, which really resonate with what we've had from Portugal, the experiences of Portugal, and the previous speaker, the mayor from SACCI, because that is the actual practice. And for me, it resonates with the fact that local governments share the same experiences. So in 2020, we did a baseline in the ESC on the localization agenda. And frankly, these were the key findings. Okay, I seem to have my slides seem to have run a little bit ahead of me, but I'll stop and try to share it again. Sorry about that. But as I do this, I'll continue to speak along. So there is a picture. That is the pact we signed with the ESC community. And the baseline we did gave us some quick findings around what we need to do. And for me, I think this speaks to what we need to reflect on in terms of rethinking the city. In terms of the key findings, going forward, the first recommendation was around, I'll just go ahead. The first recommendation was around making sure that we take important steps towards domestication. And of course, we use the word localization of the Sustainable Development Goals in all the ESC member states. And we had engaged both the government and the local government level to be able to arrive at these findings. You'll find that at that time, much of the action towards investments for SDGs implementation hung at national level, and we needed to bring on board the local governments in a much faster way. Then there was issues around citizen and community awareness, and I like the examples that have been shared previously by Xavier on how that is being done, where it was established that knowledge about SDGs remained very low amongst the citizens, and the awareness campaign efforts in place were not enough. They did not sufficiently empower the citizens to engage and, more importantly, hold their leaders accountable in a manner related to the SDGs. They were kind of closed campaigns and information material generated at national level and did not speak. They could not, the people needed to see materials in local languages, which they understand. And so this created kind of like a disconnect between the messages being sent out. And this is some of the areas we need to rethink as we work with our cities. We need to have that communication that resonates with the citizens' perspectives and expectations. Of course, the other key finding was that the local or the subnational governments had not at that time, as of 2020, been able to foster the involvement of key players such as civil society, the private sector, the academia, and other community-based organizations in their territories. And this limited their advocacy efforts and their effective involvement in localization and implementation of the SDGs-related programs. There was a lot of silo approaches to implementing this program. And therefore, this speaks to the whole aspect of planning and being able to mobilize all actors to get involved in the processes. I liked the example that Portugal still shared on how they started internally. And I'm sure by the time they go out to the community, they'll be able to create bridges and linkages with that kind of capacity being built. But more importantly, it was realized that some of the important SDG targets had at that time not been reflected in local strategies and plans. And this constituted a serious challenge. There was a disconnect between the national plans. Most of them were reporting, we are aligned to the SDGs, but when you looked at the local development plans and strategies, there was a big disconnect, and therefore it called for capacities and investments in enabling the local governments to be able to align their strategies and plans in that respect. Weak coordination mechanisms at national level and local government level. National level had structures which lacked representation of local governments, but at local government level, we didn't have structures across the region to seriously engage stakeholders on issues around SDGs. So that called for investments. And lastly, the other one of the crucial findings was that local government's ability to fulfill their role had been hindered by inadequate fiscal financial resources, an issue we all know about. This was in 2020, but that's not to say that at that time we did not have some good practices, because like we said already, local governments felt this is their mandate and something was happening. Local governments, because of that commitment level, they were trying and making efforts to do something. For example, when you looked quickly in Kenya, we realized that already as of 2020, the county governments in Kenya had SDG champions. And these were in place to support sensitization, mainstreaming, implementation, tracking, and it was working. It helped improve knowledge. In Rwanda, public awareness campaigns were running and they had actually been translated to the local level. And this brought out the good level of success and progress because the Chinyarwanda language is the national language and people quickly connected with that. But also the association, the local government association, and that goes to show why we also need to build capacities of associations at national, but also at regional levels to work on this subject. We're able to draw out or produce fact sheets in terms of priority SDG targets and indicators for the districts to be able to use in their planning processes. Down in Burundi, they had a unique approach of coming up with a budget and planning processes, a 10-year spread where they provided for projected funding per SDG target, and that would then be used to resource mobilize. We believe that this facilitated the availing of fiscal resources to implement certain SDGs and gave them a forward moving direction. For Uganda, at that time, they had very good information around a web page at national level run by the SDG Secretariat in a one-stop shop center. If you want to know about SDGs, you could go there, but it had to build capacity for quick access to citizens. And we saw this happen also in Kenya. There is a hub and it has generating a lot of information, which is being used by planners and county governments in their planning. So we think these are some of the good capacities. We talked about—
1 minute, Rose, thank you.
Okay, we talked about the policies, and of course, we found that the national levels had moved on to do policy analysis gaps, that is for Kenya and Uganda and Rwanda, and this informed later on the national and local development planning processes. So what do we need to do to rethink this city? We confirm and affirm in our region that, of course, we definitely need to invest more in awareness and advocacy. We need to simplify, demystify, and conceptualize the SDGs. We need to invest in aligning our local government plans with the SDG targets, very important, to make it easier for people to understand. We need to improve resource allocation to SDGs related programs. Like you said, we need to be specific in the planning and align the outputs to SDG targets and then be able to resource them accordingly. But support this also with new and innovative ways to finance SDGs through alternative ways of financing local governments. Capacity development is very crucial at both central and local government level. They need to build capacity of understanding across the board from the different stakeholders so that they jointly move in terms of ensuring that local implementation takes place. We need to improve SDGs coordination. They should be intergovernmental and multi-level coordination. And local governments and national governments should move together to be able to push forward the SDGs agenda and achieve them in the next 7 years if we are to do it. Of course, data and monitoring is very vital. And therefore, we need to make sure that the politicians who do oversight and our planners are on board so that they can be able to do an effective job. So Diana and friends, I think we are a reflection of entities like UCLG, that is IALGA, in our sub-regions. And if we reinforce each other's capacities, we can be able to build scale of focus, multiplication, and also be able to spread the local implementation down to the grassroots where we hold the membership in our different institutions. That is what I can say for now.
Thank you, Rose. As usual, you have been able to resume a whole world in very few minutes. You know, I was thinking when you were talking, rethink the city. And I said, well, cities in Africa have been rethinking themselves because most of these cities, they were not there 20 years ago, sometimes even 10 years ago. 5 years ago, the city was not like you see it today. It's exploding, it's growing so much, but also as usual in Africa, we find this innovation and really thinking that very, you know, I'm a big fan of East Africa personally, but still, you know, it's always this step forward about, okay, now, you know, you're rethinking, but you're rethinking constantly because it's the world that developed under your very eyes, and how these SDGs can help you to do it in a more strategic way, to avoid mistakes that we have done in the rest of the world, but also something that you say that is very important is how this can help you to do more strategic projects with data, which is with the donors and the funding community need. And this is something that we have David Jackson here. I don't know if he's listening now, but this is the first edition of the Venice City Solutions was about that specifically, about how SDGs can help cities to get better funding, how this gives you also trust in your role. Because this, it's like a marketing strategy, and we've talked with Xavi many times about this, you know, it's, the SDGs help you organize the ideas and come to the donor with a better presentation as well, because it's more strategic. And as you said, data is essential. You cannot be going, and we need to do this. Yes, we need it because you have done a strategic analysis of your needs. And this is the colleagues of UN Habitat are helping so much with the voluntary local reviews. But we really need to rethink how this links to funding the projects and how this can help cities to access funding. There is a lot to think in our next edition of Venice. We're, as usual, very short on time, but we still have the 10 minutes that I promised Carla from the beginning. So she's going to take us back a little bit to last year about what happened in Venice and what was the recommendations that the group in Venice connected in that time. Last year, we were able to do a mixed version with a small group in Venice and many people connecting online. We hope that this year was going to be able to meet in person because the ideas circulate like the virus. We need presential people to circulate certain ideas, but I still think that Venice is a very important moment to rethink where we are going in terms of SDG implementation. So Carla, over to you. I'm sorry but you still have your 10 minutes, I promise, so take them. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana, and good morning, everyone, to the co-organizers and also to all the followers of Venice City Solutions. Well, my duty is to wrap up the recommendation of the last edition. Just to say that in our 4th edition of Venice City Solution within the Platforma project, we were debating, as Diana said, about SDG solution to rethink the cities. And we debated on how the SDGs are the roadmap for local regional governments to define a new model of city that we want to be flexible, inclusive, resilient, sustainable. So we have 5 recommendations that we want to bring to this HLPF. The first one is to enhance the universality of the 2030 agenda. To rethink the city through the SDGs, we need to define the global critical aspect also at local level. That means that we need to work on the same essential issues both at local and global level. That means that we need to guarantee in the cities justice, the right to the cities for everyone, and mostly we need to focus the public services on caring for people. How we can manage this? Well, Diana, I would like to say that we have some tools. I'm not saying targets because I'm citing localizing SDGs. We have tools like the VLR, the VSR that are showing, as we saw from the experience of Sarchi or Cascais, or what Rose said, the impact of local activities at the global dimension. We can really demonstrate the link between the local dimension to the global level. The second recommendation that we want to highlight is to enhance the partnership principle. If we want to rethink the cities through the SDGs, we need to adapt an intersectorial approach. We cannot be satisfied when we have many municipal departments working together on SDGs. We need to focus more on the SDG 17, the partnership principle. That means, as Maria Alejandra was saying before, that we cannot leave the partnership to bilateral approach like a public and private. We need to have all the stakeholders at the same decision-making table and having their point of view on every kind of decision. That means to have together the local governments, the national governments, but also the civil society, the NGOs, the third sector, the academias, and the private sector, all together to define the local strategies, even if they are not apparently directly affecting one of other stakeholders. The third recommendation that we want to highlight is we need to include actors that need to be listened better. And now I'm linking this to what Xavi said before. We need to shape the cities, including in this decision-making sphere, the most vulnerable citizens, for example, because they are expressing the need of diversity that we have in our cities. But also we need to include young people. We don't just need to listen to them. We need to transform their idea in concrete actions, because we need to remember to ourselves that we have this intergenerational responsibility. Third, women. We need to bring in the city policies the transversal feminist perspective, because it's an added value for our local policies. And if we want to rethink the cities, we need to hear and to make them really actors of our local decisions. And last but not least, we said in Venice that we need also to take into much more account the scientists and the researchers, because we need data, figures, if we want to build local solution for global challenges. We need to start from their point of view, their study of research. So how can we manage this? How we can achieve this point? Well, we actually listen from Cascais, also for other example, that we have already in the cities civil society movement that are very active and that should be included in this decision-making sphere. I want to remember also that we have civil society platforms that are working on this. Just to say that we need to adopt a new social model that will include the actors that need to be listened better. The fourth recommendation, we need to flip the script of our SDG strategy at local level. To rethink the city, we need to enlarge the citizens' participation. We need, as colleagues already said, to rebuild the trust with the citizens that are being excluded. And we need to listen more and better their point of view. How can we manage? Well, we have to flip the script, as Xavi said. That means that we need to change the narrative, to amplify our message on sustainability, to communicate the SDGs better to the citizens, and to collect their narrative, their point of view on our SDG strategy. Doing this, we can really enlarge the SDG family in our cities. And the last recommendation is reaffirming that local is the answer to global challenges. To rethink the city through the SDGs, we know how mayors are the key actors because they can guarantee the full access of every citizen in the city life, the full inclusion of every stakeholders, and we know that they are capable to adopt the holistic approach of the 2030 agenda that is easier at local level than the national one. What kind of tools the mayor have for this? Well, as was said before, and what the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic taught us is that we can use the principle of proximity to reshape the city, revitalizing the sense of a real community based on solidarity and also on equality. But also, we should empower the local for action hubs, the SDGs laboratory at local level that transform the local ideas in actions. And those actions can be replicated at a global level to accelerate the implementation of the SDGs. So what is still missing at the end of these 5 recommendations? What Diana was saying lastly, that we are in any case asking for direct funds at local level for implementing the SDGs. Those ambition global challenges can be succeeded if we provide the tools at local level. So I think that I wrap up what we said in Venice. Diana, let me thank all the Venice City Solutions participants that allow us every year to bring those recommendations that are their thought and our brainstorming in Venice to the HLPF. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carla. We know it's not easy to concretize in the 2 days of debate in such a short time. You always do a splendid job. I think it's so important to come together. It's because we are all, especially with this COVID thing, we're all working from home in very much isolation, and we always forget how important it is to bring people together to share and move forward in this agenda. We only have 3 minutes, so there's no time to reopen the whole thing. It's going to be too long. So I'm sorry for the colleagues that wanted to make some comments. We hope to have them in presence in Venice this year. We are floating still what we are going to be discussing in Venice. We normally do like we put a title, but then we go all over the place with SDGs. So it's very difficult to focus. I still think that the question of trust in the role of public sector is a key question for our times, because if the people don't trust our mayors, our local governments, our public sector to resolve these problems, there's nothing else that we can do. The whole thing, we can be speaking about many things and how the SDGs are helping local and governments and mayors to generate trust. I think we have to keep working on that. I think is the whole ball game. But this year, I think we're floating more this idea of focusing Venice in the concept of flip the script that may mean many other things that, you know, because this is a very global idea. And again, I need to localize the concept of the flip the script and make it truly local, that resonates and makes and gives ideas to mayors and local governments to keep advancing on the agenda. So we'll keep this group updated about what happens with Venice this year. I had already some questions from people that need the presentations, more information. So we'll be collecting those and circulating on the participants to this webinar. I really want to thank you so much for we have nearly 60 participants, which is really a very good number. Thanks to all the organizers for mobilizing the people, the different constituencies that we bring together. To finalize, I'm going to show the famous flip the script video let's see if with my homemade system, I'm able to share the sound. Otherwise, the link it's in YouTube, but let me see if I can, if I manage to do this, disconnecting the cables, reconnecting.